Here's the big question this show answers. How do we leverage technology and human science to positively impact our personal and professional life? The Tech Human Experience has the answer. Here's your host, Inc. 5000 tech founder, neuroscience junkie, and Navy SEAL wannabe, Javier Guerra.
Hello, my fellow tech humans. Today's guest is a principal at Slalom Consulting, where she specializes in elevating product value through human-centered design. Her impactful work spans various high-profile projects, including collaborations with the City of New York, Budweiser's Super Bowl campaign, and Amazon's Echo Dot launch. Please welcome Ali Lyles-Jenkins. Thank you for your time today, Ali.
Thanks, Javier. Thanks for having me.
So, Ali, I wanted to start with a question, right? So, before entering the world of technology and security, was there a different career path that you had in mind? If so, what can you help us understand what it was and kind of how you made that transition?
Yeah, of course. Well, I think before the age of 14, before I went to high school, I probably had like 15,000 careers. I was always the kid that was like, I want to do this and do this and this and this. Oddly enough, what I kind of centered around became my career later on. I just didn't know it. So when I was in elementary school, I wanted to be an artist. I liked doodling ideas. I always had pen and paper with me, and I liked, drawing things as I saw them. And then when I was in high school, I wanted to be a computer coder. It was something that was very fascinating to me just to see, we had our very first laptops. We went to the computer lab, like, how did this stuff make it to the screen? And then, flash forward maybe 15 years, that's ultimately what my career became. It became a UX designer and a product strategist. I was able to meld the human aspect of technology by bringing in the artistry and the pixel perfect things we see on the screen with the desire to devour a tech stack and create. So yes, prior to being in the position I am as a product strategist and consultant, I wanted to be an artist, and I basically was able to technify when I wanted to be when I was 4 years old.
Nice. Technify. I like that. I might have to borrow that one from you. It's funny. I was very artistic. I mean, I still am very artistic and very creative, but I don't know if I wanted to be an artist, but I liked art, right? So I took art classes and, I would draw for fun and do very meticulous drawings. And so I always liked art. And, I kind of went down the path of medicine, but then, I kind of apply my medical background and my knowledge of human science to technology now, which is interesting. But
That's crazy.
Yeah, it's funny how things work out, for sure.
Yeah, we both use the left and the right side of the brain.
Yes, yeah, good way to look at it. And don't get me down that neuroscience path because I'm gonna,
Okay.
keep us here all day talking about that stuff.
Some other time.
Yeah. So let's dive into today's topic. What I wish I knew as a product leader, putting humans in the experience. In this episode, we'll discuss the importance of human-centered design in product development, from minimum viable products to market launch. We'll also tackle the double-edged sword that is Gen AI and how it impacts product strategy. So let's talk a little bit about product development and MVPs, minimum viable products. Can you help us, or can you walk us through your approach to taking a product from concept to market, especially focusing on achieving a minimum viable product?
So in my line of work, I help people who have an idea either make an existing widget better, or it's a blank slate. They have an idea and it has to come into fruition. And essentially, I start by the age-old question of what problem are we trying to solve? And then whose problem are we trying to solve? What problem, because we need to understand what is the solution, and then who is very much that human aspect. And so usually it starts with a team of smart people in a room, and keep it lean to about like 6 or 8, and myself. And we're helping, trying to figure every way that we can solve for that problem. And then when you are able to whittle down like what is it that we're trying to solve, then you have the building blocks for how to make a product. And it really has to do minimum viable, no bells and whistles. It has to be beautiful and functional, but functional at best. And so what we're trying to do is understand like what problem are we trying to solve. So it doesn't really matter how we do it, whether it's a SaaS product or a CPG or a table or any sort of widget. It's like, what problem are we trying to solve? And then very close second question is, who are we trying to solve that problem for? And that's really important. I mean, quite often when I sit with product leaders or people who are interested in building products, they can be, the COO, head of operations, and not ever touch products, where we have to whittle down like who are the personas, who's using this product. Because more often than not, that requires deep thought. And we build product personas like she's age 35. She likes shopping at Lululemon. Her favorite thing is apples, and right down to the granular, right? Because if we don't sitting down and more often than not, sadly, I kind of have people roll their eyes like, why are we doing this exercise? You already know who it is. Filling out a very basic 1-page profile of who that persona is brings a lot of questions to surface that people might not have ever asked themselves before, including who are we solving it for? Could it be me? So I don't know if you've ever run into this, but sometimes when people are thinking of products, they're really thinking of themselves in mind. Like, I wish I had X, and they are an N of 1, which is terrific. We want to honor that because I'm sure it's a great idea. But if you're an N of 1 and the product won't be ever consumed with it, but anyone but you, then what is that really trying to solve, a mass problem or your problem? Because we can't aggregate a product that's built for an N of 1 to the masses. The problem is no one's going to consume it. So going through those exercises, those 2 fundamental questions is like, what is the problem and who are we trying to solve this problem for, are what kicks off the whole product process.
Yeah, and I don't know what the exact stats are, but I know that a lot of times organizations or people are trying to solve something that they think that the market wants, instead of like trying to figure out what does the market need and what will they consume and what is that problem, and then going and building that. And it makes me think of a program that I went through that was based off the methodology of taking a product to market, based off an MIT program that I went through. I think it was 6 weeks that we went through, and it was taking us through a process of really going out and interviewing the market to find out, like, what do they really need? What would they consume, right? What's best for them? And then coming back and then building the solution to that problem. And it's hard to do in some cases, right? Because I believe that humans are inherently kind of self-centered, right? It's like kind of everything revolves around us, but it's not about us. It's about, like you said, the people's problems that we're trying to solve. And we really have to put ourselves in those shoes. It makes me think about that. How do you deal with the challenge that really comes from diverse stakeholders and product development teams? I guess I could say.
The answer to that hinges on something you just said, which is like, humans are inherently self-centered, and it's just a tribalism of people wanting to protect them and their own and their family and their tribe. And so I bring that sort of way of thinking into any room I walk into with product stakeholders, because it's not, when you introduce a new product or something that is going to help people, it's not that people are inherently like, if they show hesitancy, it's not that they dislike the product itself, it's that they don't really understand how it's going to solve something that they're interested in. And so oftentimes when I work with diverse stakeholders, I'm trying to understand from that person's perspective, how do they see that product working for them? What might rub them the wrong way? How might that make this product or this idea make their day easier? And if I can get their vested interest in that, then it makes the product better. because we want to hear a lot of different viewpoints to create friction so we can create a better product. And essentially, like, no team can go at it alone, even working with product teams, which can span from BAs to UX designers to engineers to scrum masters and so on. If the director of procurement doesn't understand the product, like someone who might not ever touch our universe, that's a problem. We need to be able to explain it to as many people as possible. And so working with multiple stakeholders, what I often try to do is pitch a product, understand, make it very clear how it can help them, and then solicit any feedback they might have, because that might be something that we'd not considered before. But always keep in mind that if someone doesn't like your product or your product idea, it's not that they don't like it, it's that they might not understand it.
Good point. Good point. Yeah, and it makes me think that that feedback that you were talking about, like that is gold. Like some people call that gold, right? It's like you put an MVP out and you get feedback from the audience, right? Or from the end users, and then you make it better and better and better and better. And it's never going to be perfect at launch. You don't want it to be perfect, right? You need to get it out there and start getting that valuable feedback, and then you just continuously evolve the product. But I would imagine that getting a lot of feedback before you actually launch the product is extremely valuable.
Oh, yeah, for sure. I think that being able to have an idea and refine your product personas and just get minimal viable product out the door and testing it beforehand is going to be crucial. Because then you know that your thoughts don't exist in a silo. But there's this fine delineation between making sure your product is tested and out the door and not sitting on your product for 4 years, which can make it so that by the time it goes to market, it's not even relevant anymore. So it's got to strike a balance there.
Especially now, things are moving so fast. It's mind-boggling how quick it's moving. The market's moving.
It's hard to keep up.
Yeah. First mover advantage is important too, right? That helps.
Yes.
So in this process, like, do you have any go-to technologies or tools that you think are just crucial for product managers?
There are a lot of things I personally use, but one of the Atlassian platforms that I think has been very helpful from product leaders that I speak to is Jira Discovery. So when we think about Jira, is essentially like a product management tool where you have stories of how to build a product. So I want my product to function as is, and you write a bunch of stories. These are the stories that the entire team, whether it's engineers or UX designers or business analysts, these are what they look to as sort of a map of how to build a product. And it's what they scrum daily. Jira Discovery is sort of the precursor to that, in the sense that this is where ideas live. If a business person, let's say a product goes to market and it is a widget that is supposed to help with ride shares, and a business person or an operations person or an engineer has an idea of how to better this project or product for the ride share, they say, hey, I think we should make it so the screen goes into light mode at night so that a driver can drive in the dark and be able to see. That is something that would go in the precursor, which is Jira Discovery. What Jira Discovery allows is it's a safe space and a haven for ideas, things that haven't been business vetted yet. So we can better, and what it does is it allows products and product makers and business people to house the ideas in a space and make sure that we track these ideas, but holds them so that when we all decide as a team and as a group that we're going to make this part of the widget, it goes into Jira. So Atlassian does a lot of great productivity platforms that I'm a fan of, like Confluence and things like that. But for the longest time, without Jira Discovery, ideas lived in the same space as things that were directives that were part of the product. But when you go to QA and you see an idea, it's like, oh, this was never really actually done. So I think that Jira Discovery is a wonderful platform for business folks, operations folks. It doesn't matter whether you have an idea, it lives someplace, it doesn't die. And then once we decide that it's something that it has some legs and we want to make as part of a product, it goes into Jira. So it's something that is essentially like a better way to organize product ideas and sanity.
Yeah, Exactly. I'd say it would be much more beneficial to keep that focus on what are the top priorities, like what are you building, what are you implementing now, and kind of just wash your mind of all those other things, but don't lose them, right? Keep them there, and then you can kind of reprioritize accordingly, right? I think human science says that our brains typically will get off track every 90 days. So, maybe go in and that's something that we do as an organization is every 90 days we're resetting every quarter, right? And we're kind of resetting the goals. Still have the long-term goals, but we're resetting how we're going to get there, so to speak.
I liked your discovery because, to your point, it keeps the long-term goals and offers a place for resetting. It also makes sure that the product process is aligned so that we're all saying, hey, this idea, are we going to rally behind this? Do we want to make this come into fruition? Yes, we do. Okay, then let's map it um, without losing our track every 90 days.
There's a lot going on right now with a lot of technologies. There's probably multiple options of tools and methodologies that you can use in your practice when you're solving problems for clients. What do you think are some of the most like common misconceptions when you encounter like AI, machine learning in product development?
I feel like we're like I am someone who loves AI for product. I use AI on a daily basis, like personally, to be able to help me with like wireframes. Like if I have an idea, like I have an idea for a product, but I don't quite know where to start, I can ask AI tools and platforms to help me get started on an idea I have for an ice cream service or an app that helps you schedule lawn mowings for my lawn or something like that. I think essentially for all that's amazing in the world of AI, we have a lot of shiny object syndrome. To be quite honest, where there's this platform does this platform does that, and we're all super excited. And there's some big names and some Fortune 50 companies behind huge platforms, and I think it's amazing. But it kind of goes back to what I just said at the beginning, where it's like, what are we using this for, and who are we using this for? So that when we're building products with AI, it's very easy to say, okay, this company is using ChatGPT, OpenAI, Bard. I want to use it too. If we don't know why we're using a platform and how it's going to help make things more efficient or easier for the processes that we want to do, then we're going to end up getting lost and we're going to have to dial back some things. So I think businesses, or what we're seeing more and more of, are adopting AI platforms because they know it's the wave of the future, but they're not really thinking about the business function just yet. And so when we plug in Bard or ChatGPT or OpenAI into any business tech stack without understanding how it's going to help internally with, existing employees and externally towards clients or customers, then we cause a big disruption in operational planning. And then when we have disruption, if we're not ready to fix and clean up whatever we need to clean up, then we're doing more harm than good. So I have no problem with AI. I think it's great, but I'm always going back to, why do we need this? Just like any technology, hardware, software. If you want to buy a second iPhone, why do you need that? It's very simple as that, because you might be doing more harm than good.
Yeah, and I think the problem these days is there's so many options. It's like almost I'm just visualizing you guiding clients through this process, and it's like it's almost like you have to pay attention more to like shutting off that noise and like we're not going to do these things. We're going to focus over here, and because the alternative is a lot of wasted time, a lot of wasted energy, and just potentially creating a mess, so to speak, because there's so many options. I couldn't imagine how and growing, right? It's like there's so many new tools always being developed. It's almost mind-boggling.
It is mind-boggling, and I feel empathy for people who want to do AI because they're hearing so much of it, and it's a big publicity campaign, and that we're hearing that it's always in the news. I think one of the things that a business issue that we need to untease too as well is the fact that Gen AI is something that takes a bunch of information and is largely predictive of this is what you could do. But some business leaders that I'm talking to really just need machine learning models. like old school machine learning models that has nothing to do with AI. And it's not until we talk to business people and we say, like, what is it that you're using for? What problem are you trying to solve? That you're able to say, oh, you don't need Gen AI. You need a really robust machine learning program, and then go from there. But yeah, it is overwhelming. So I always approach conversations like that with empathy, because people are reading about AI and the latest and greatest every day when they, wake up to drink their cup of coffee and look at their iPhone and catch up with the news. So it's our job as people in the space to help them be less overwhelmed and find their better options.
Ethics and like human considerations is a huge topic right now. Everybody is trying to figure out governance with this stuff. There's, of course, with AI, with a lot of different technologies, right? There's challenges in the advancements, but there's this concept of ethical debt in tech, right? Could you explain what that means and why it's important for businesses to really consider?
One of the things I gave a talk on recently was like ethical debt when it comes to AI and machine learning modeling. And part of it is that, we hear a lot about data governance and using AI platforms and then going to market fairly quickly. The thing about AI and machine learning is that you need to be able to train the model, look at what the model spits out, fix the kinks, and then in earnest, you can go to market and say, okay, this is going to really help change a technology platform. However, a lot of companies right now, and we've sort of seen the outpouring of this in the news, is that like police departments are using AI software to find criminals, and then they are able to do facial recognition, pick up someone who committed robbery like 2 days ago, and then they pick up the wrong person. We hear things like this happening all the time with platforms that are using data that is largely immature. These models aren't mature. And one of the things that a paper that was recently released is talking about the idea of ethical debt and technical debt, is that if we're willing to, like, for example, police departments have been had a lot of high profile cases in the past couple of years using these AI platforms for facial recognition. The idea is that, like, much like building a product, and you're taking it quickly to market or trying to get it to the consumer, you take on technical debt. So this is something that is going to cause a problem currently, and you're going to fix later. So we have a lot of technical debt with old software or problems that we're facing right now in the building of the product. The idea with this ethical debt is that if you're going to move quickly to market with data models that have not been robustly tested, the kinks have not been worked out, but we're going to sell it anyway, then you should be ready to take on that debt, because it's something that you're going to have to pay for later. So if, for example, in the notorious case of police departments, if they are, using facial recognition software and accidentally misidentifying people, then they can't really be that surprised when a civil lawsuit comes to the fore, because they used a platform that the data model was not robust, and because this was done in haste, they're going to have to double back and understand that there are repercussions for actions. So the idea of ethical debt is that if you're going to move quickly with software that hasn't been tested, be mindful of the fact that you're going to have to pay that back, that you're going to have to take on the repercussions of your actions. So if you buy, I don't know, $250,000 Rolls Royce and you're living in it, you're living in it and it's awesome because you have a Rolls Royce, but you have to pay back your debt, right? So it's sort of, if you're going to win the prize of living in a Rolls Royce, and you're going to live in it, be prepared to pay the debt of living in it, but you still have a Rolls Royce. So it's a concept that has been talked about more recently with AI. If we're going to run it with it, cat's out of the bag, let's be prepared to deal with the repercussions.
Yeah, it's interesting to see how all this develops, because it's it's a great tool, but it's not perfect. And like one of the things that I constantly think about, or just keeps coming up for me, is that Like we all as humans have inherent bias. We've had challenges as humans in society, whether it be, you know, wrongfully incriminating somebody, right? Or equality, all these different types of things. Well, all of this historical data is what's being fed into these algorithms. And so those flaws are, and I just got a thumbs up. It's my Mac, right? All these flaws are inherently baked into these algorithms, right? And so we absolutely have to be aware of that. And so there is that risk, right, which can create that ethical debt, and like you say, you're going to have to potentially reap the consequences if you put something out with that much thought into it that can make wrong decisions. And yeah, people come back in the case of the police department, and could be a lawsuit involved for sure.
Yeah, and to your point, I think an extra layer to that is that ethical debt and the concept of paying for it later is a little bit more realistic than asking for a moratorium. So, like, last year made the news that Elon Musk said AI is dangerous. I'm going to call for a 6-month moratorium on all AI things. That's a great idea in theory, except who stops it? Why 6 months? What are we doing in 6 months? What's going to be achieved in 6 months? That time boxing is almost arbitrary. And so the idea of ethical debt in AI is that it's sort of swim at your own risk. It's you can put these products out in market, but be prepared for the repercussions, which I think now that the cat's out of the bag, I was playing with the AI platform the other day where I could see myself with blonde hair. And if I was 6 feet tall, I could play with my proportions. Like it's so in the hands of anyone, and it's so benign. And it's ubiquitous these days that it's already out. There's no 6-month moratorium, as much as we would like for there to be. I do agree with the sentiment, but like in reality, I'm not sure how that's going to play out. So ethical debt says, yeah, swim at your own risk, go play.
I guess in relation to user-centric design, it, talking about, along the lines of what we're currently talking about, what are some common mistakes that you see organizations make when it comes to like neglecting, I guess, the human element in product development?
There are a couple of different pitfalls, I think, that are, have some good faith behind them. But I think one of the things that as people are rushing to get products out of the market, we see more often than not that they're cutting out user testing or not doing robust user testing. So, and that's essentially where you're able to test your ideas. And some reasons, people are like, why aren't people doing user testing? In theory, it's a great idea, but when you're trying to get something out the door and you're, behind schedule and your, budget's looking crazy, user testing is one of the first things to go, because it's already crunched. The ones and zeros are done, and the QA team's ready to receive. User testing is perceived to be very time staking, not needed, but it's actually one of the ways that you could catch bugs and pitfalls pretty early on. And there are a lot of platforms like usertesting.com. That's one of my favorites to do user testing, where you can do user testing and get analysis back within an hour on a product. And so I think there's this misconception that user testing is very time intensive, and but it's actually one of the best ways to validate and catch errors and inspire potential future consumer confidence before it goes out the door. But that's one of the things I think is a big thing. And another thing that I touched on the top of the hour was designing for an N of one, when leaders are like, I would use this product this way, and they get lost in the I, and while honorable, they forget the we and whoever the end user is.
How can companies really transition from treating these end users more as afterthought, so to speak, than really kind of shifting to make them the focal point and keeping them, kind of in the crosshairs as, they're the most important during like discussions with product meetings and strategies?
Some of the low hanging fruit. I mean, there are a lot of theoretical things you can do, but some of the low hanging fruit of things you could do is a lot of product leaders recently in Houston in the small, medium-sized business SaaS space have been hosting consumer committees, and they're actually part of the test process and the product process. So what they'll do is they have a committee of about 20 consumers of people who, a mix of people who do and do not use the product. And they're helping to test along the way. So they're getting like Amazon gift cards for testing your widget, and they're working with product teams and operation teams to develop. And so it's one of those things that is accessible because it's easy to manage a team of 20 people who and provide feedback, and you're testing along the way. And what they're seeing is that if you can create a program around this so that it's, a survey monkey survey or something like that after a product is tested, and you're doing this ceremoniously, so like after every sprint or every quarter or after PI planning, program increment planning for a product, it's actually pretty successful. But the idea is that you have a bunch of consumers who are built into the making of your product.
And how do they pick these consumer, I guess, sets of individuals to participate? Is there like a strategy around that you can share?
Yeah, I think that more often than not, these are people that are handpicked against the user persona that's identified. And so what they'll do is they'll send out, like if there's a weekly newsletter goes out that it says like, hey, do you want to participate in a survey? It can be as easy as that. But I think that when you're forming a committee of consumers, the relevancy to that end user persona is crucial. So if it's 20 people who aren't your target user persona of like teenage girls, or college age men, then the relevancy will fall to the wayside. But that's how they're actively looking at people who are already consuming the product and are willing to provide feedback.
So I would imagine some sort of like a marketing expert, or I guess it would be like some subset of a marketing expert that would help in kind of categorizing those types or identifying those types of ideal user groups that would come in and kind of do some of that initial feedback stuff.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yes.
Very interesting.
Like product marketing or marketing. Yeah, it is cool.
Yeah. Yes, and it's definitely a science. I've done a lot of work working with some really good marketing companies. It is a lot of work, to really understand a lot of that stuff. Much easier said than done. So it's definitely good to have an expert helping with that kind of stuff. So let's shift a little bit and talk about organizational culture and like employee engagement. In your experience, what are the key ingredients that make really a team in tech successful?
The key ingredients to making a tech team successful is visibility into a larger product roadmap. So I'm going to be a little biased because I live in product, but I've always liked the idea of a product roadmap because it offers people visibility and transparency into what they're doing on a daily basis. What is it that we're building? What is it that we're working towards? I think, statistics have shown that when we do organizational psychology research, like the Adam Grant type stuff, that people identify with product roadmaps, particularly in a hybrid workplace, because we no longer see each other, in the halls like we used to pre-COVIDian days, where we walked into a building, the logo was in our face, whatever we did was always in our face, our coworkers were always in our face, and we could always rally around each other. If anything, like by the water cooler in the kitchen. If we are living a more hybrid world, which is increasingly more preferred, if I'm at home working out of my home office, I want to know what it is we're all working on, because we're not all seeing the same stuff every day. We're not all mapping towards the same thing. And so product roadmap is something that provides visibility for all members of the organization, to understand what it is we're building, what it is we're accountable for, and how I contribute to that being produced every day. And so putting it, the shared artifact in a shared space, whether it's intranet or Mural or Confluence or whatever your tech stack, favorite is incredibly helpful, because there's nothing worse than being part of an organization and just not knowing what we're working towards. So from a product standpoint, it's from it serves the utmost importance in the organizational property.
It's really to bring visibility on the project as a whole, but then everybody, regardless if they're on site or off site, remotely working, they can kind of see what their effects are having on the entire project so that everyone can kind of, in a sense, gauge how they are contributing to the project and how the entire project is moving forward, so to speak.
Right, exactly. And if it's something like if you say like I'm a director of human resources, the product has nothing to do with me, or if you say I'm a director of operations, that has nothing to do with me. It really is something that product is drives business value, and a product is always representative of the vision and mission of a company. And so that's why it is relevant, because the director of human resources might say, oh, this product is going to need this AI feature. I'm going to have to, source a bunch of AI scientists or whatnot. And so it is representative of what that company values and what they're willing to put intellectual capital and resources against in order to push something out the door to consumers.
Yeah, because it's not just a product; it's a tool for the organization to fulfill its mission.
Exactly.
So it's
Exactly.
much bigger than that. Yeah, and it makes me think of gamification. It's like, and I don't know if y'all are using tools to do this, but it's almost like, I think as our world starts to move forward, especially the younger generations, it's like they want immediate gratification. Like they have everything at their fingertips, and it's almost like everything's becoming gamified, and there's that like quick reward that they want. And I'm envisioning like, okay, there's product teams working on this, and they can kind of see, and they're getting that kind of gratification of moving the project forward, and getting points or gold stars, right?
Yeah,
I'm
no, it makes
curious.
sense.
Do you know? Is there like gamification involved in some of these like tools? Have you seen that?
Oh yeah. I think the cool thing about the gamification of things is that you always want to know what the goal is. Like, so, old school back in the day, if you're playing Mario Brothers, the goal is to save the princess and to go up the flagpole, and that's the win. And that's what product roadmaps provide visibility into, is like, what is it that we're marching towards? What is the goal? But there are great platforms like Asana that make it a bit more whimsical. Like when you complete a task, it has like confetti. I saw a unicorn go across the screen the other day when I was using Asana. So it's making it clear that that is the reward. I just completed something, and something as whimsical as that can make onerous tasks like fly by, and it just provides value to what I'm doing on a daily basis.
So in relation to ethics and really human-centric problem solving, how do you approach problem solving when dealing with human-centric issues in tech, like representation, inclusivity?
I think that one of the things that's top of mind for me is for a product that exists. So if you have a platform that exists, for example, case.com, I'll just name that. Um, there are ways that you can test in the back end how that product is performing, where people are not able to access some of the services that are part of your product. And so data is imperative. We really cannot make decisions on product or bettering a product without data. And so what I would encourage folks to do is take a look at the data and look at how a person is able to go through the product and where things can be made better, and how that data is measured against your user persona. So at the top of the discussion, one of the things we said is that when you're building out a product, you have to be mindful of the end user. So my end user is a stay-at-home mom with 2 high school children, and she can't even, Zelle her kid money as they're going to a field trip. There's data and metrics that are looking at product performance and whether or not my stay-at-home mother can be able to do that. So I think one of the best ways to understand how your product is performing while keeping the user persona in mind is by looking at the data. You should not put anything out in the wild without being able to back it up by data.
Can you, in your opinion, can you help us kind of understand, what does ethical leadership look like in the tech industry?
Ethical leadership is being able to understand, like, being able to work as part of a representative of the company to outline product vision and mission statement. because products that companies produce are always tied to vision and mission statement, because essentially that product is a vehicle for the business. And so ethical leadership looks like, who is it you want to serve? How do you want to serve them? And how do you plan to put that together and roadmap out? So one of the things is that there's no perfect leader in leadership, but it needs to be very much outlined. Like if you're putting a product out there into the wild, like what is it that who do you want to serve,
Post-Covidian.
and how is your
Post-Covidian.
yes post Covidian, like how is it bettering the mission, and the vision for the company, and what are you willing to leave behind? So it can't help everyone. No product is going to do everything and all the things. So what make a clear outline about who it helps, and what it does and does not do. That way you're able to make sure that the product's always tied to business initiative, and able to reconcile when it's not able to help with business initiative because it doesn't serve that person or it doesn't do that thing. It wasn't set out to do that thing. So being explicit up top.
Yeah, and it makes me think about one of the guys that I worked with. I think it was Bill Schley, and he says specific is terrific, and it's really having that kind of target, right? You want that specific target client that you want to help solve their problem, right? But having that, I would imagine that having that aligned, right? Like if you have that specificity of like, what is our mission? What is our vision? Who are we trying to help? And then putting a product out to market to help them, that's very powerful. Having all those aligned, right? And then having that organization backing it, and it's like a meaningful part of the mission and, people, it can be very powerful to go and make an impact, right, on that specific target audience that is really in need of that solution, so to speak. Because it's not easy. It's going to be hard either way. Right, but if you had all that meaning behind it, then it makes it fun and it makes it meaningful. So it's odds are you're not going to stop. You're gonna keep going and keep going and push through those challenges, so to speak. So, Allie, we're getting ready to kind of start closing things out here, but before we end today, in your opinion, what technology does the world need that doesn't exist yet?
Technology that people need that doesn't exist yet, I would say, and I don't know if it's out there, but I, as someone who is very much into clothes and being fashion forward, but also something that's useful, it would be helpful to have a platform that scans my body. So similar to the technology, the AR that's used, where you go to Amazon and you want to buy a drawer, and a dresser drawer, and it says, "Do you want to see this in your bedroom?" And you're able to put the image of the dresser drawer against your bedroom. I think it'd be cool if there's a phone. I can take my phone and scan my body, and it knows how tall I am, what are my proportions, so that every e-com site that I go to, where I want to, whether it's Target or Old Navy, I can see the clothes not on abstract stranger models that I don't know, but on myself. So if I want to buy a dress from Old Navy, I want to see it on Allie as I exist now, and then that'll help dictate if I can buy that. Because consumer marketing shows that a lot of people will not buy clothes if the model doesn't necessarily look like them or anyone they know. It's this very strange abstract fact, but we have the ability to be able to scan, my body. I have to do it, when I buy glasses off Warby Parker. Why not be able to do it for fashion? I think down the line, it would make for a lot less returns to Amazon or to Old Navy and going at UPS or Kohl's, and it would make what I see more relevant. So that's my idea. I don't know for a fact that doesn't exist, but it's something that I've heard would make life a lot easier.
That would be very useful. I would use it. It would definitely save in my returns.
Yeah.
But
and
I heard
if you
Amazon
say that
was cracking down on returns.
They are cracking down on returns. And to your point, you said that, we reset every 90 days. If I can scan it, Often because the Christmas season came and I ate a little bit too much pie and that dress is going to fit a little bit differently, then why not reset that way, right? But we have the technology, but I think it would cut off, it would make Allie feel great as a consumer, but it would also cut down a lot of like operational back office work that I think to your point, Amazon's cracking down on these inefficient returns.
Yeah, yeah. Amazon Prime. I was wondering a while back, like, how are they doing this? Because, like, I buy a lot of stuff and I return it. It's like, oh, I don't really like, didn't, it's not really as described, right? But, yeah, yeah. I'm more of the type of, I'm not sure which one I want to just get all three of them and then I'll just return the two that I don't like. But it's, yeah, I would imagine it's got to be a pain. It's got to be a lot for them to handle. So I understand why they're starting to crack it down. No thanks. I'll raise my hand and say I may be partially to blame on that. But yeah. So Ali, can you help us understand how you help clients? You obviously have a lot of experience. You work for a pretty cool organization, right? Can you help us understand like what you can really do to help people that may be listening?
Yeah, I am willing to whiteboard with people who have an existing product out there and that they want to make better, or people who have product ideas that they're like, this is a shower thought. It might be $1 million dream. Let's work it out. And so that's what I would invite people to do is like if you want to collaborate or just whiteboard, do a virtual whiteboard session on an idea or thought you have, willing to listen and learn. I love to nerd out. I love products. I am returning things back to Amazon constantly just because I like to try things. I think I can romanticize about products. I think products are really cool because it started from an idea. It had to be executed, and it shows what a company values for a moment in time, to solve a problem. And it shows restraint for the things that they didn't do when you see versions 2.0, 3.0, 4.0 later. But I really geek out about products and I like helping people and helping people find things that might make the world a little bit better. So if you are interested in doing that, just reach out. I'm happy to whiteboard with you.
Yeah, if anybody is out there like me and has too many ideas, maybe Ali can kind of help you herd those cats in your face and just, yes, maybe have a couple of ideas to narrow it down to. But yeah, I mean, who knows? Maybe you can help me, Ali, because I'm actually been working on some pretty interesting stuff the past year-ish, right? And so I'm actually seriously considering starting to ramp up efforts around a particular platform that I've been working on, but maybe you can help me eliminate some of the cats jumping around in my head and, go down
That's
a
fair.
specific
That's
path.
half the battle.
Yeah.
Right. Happy to help.
Exactly. So Ali, thanks for joining us today and sharing your insights. Listeners, be sure to check out her work and follow her on social media. Website links and social handles will be in the show description. Ali, could you let us know where people can find you real quick? We will post this in the description also.
Yeah, you can find me on LinkedIn, Ali Lyles-Jenkins, and then also on my website, allylyles.com. So ALLEYLYLES.com.
And then finally, from our conversation, Ali, what's one piece of actionable advice you'd want the audience to walk away with today?
One piece of actionable advice is to keep your ideas. So we were talking about Jira discovery and, ideas of making a product better. Keep your ideas someplace, whether it's a notebook or a sticky note or something. You never know when it's going to be handy. And you're going to kick yourself when you never wrote it down. So that's something I would say is keep your ideas handy.
Yeah, I just got an idea. I have so many ideas that I've kept over the years. I just need to dump them all into ChatGPT and be like, okay, what are the best ideas and organize them in order of priority and, focus on those. Maybe that's one way to herd the cats. So thanks again, Ali. Really enjoyed the conversation and, always looking forward to talk to you. Congrats on your new little addition to the family. And, let's definitely regroup at some point. Would love to keep the conversation going. Maybe you can help me narrow in some of my focus. So audience, don't forget to help your fellow tech humans. Share this podcast and follow me on LinkedIn at Javier Guerra 360. See you next time on the Tech Human Experience.
The Tech Human Experience.